topic or the full guidance or the full essence on what PAS 23 is talking about. But basically, this topic which is focuses on computing the capitalizable borrowing cost. Okay. First question to you guys. You're already familiar with this one. So what is an example of a borrowing cost? Cost of borrowing. Kung Bisayaon pa nato guys, unsa ang cost or unsa ang cost. O kung ba si cost Bisaya sa cost. Unsa ang cost sa paghuwam og kwarta ana? Interest, no? What else? Mga finance cost. But mostly this one, this PAS 23 or this discussion mostly focuses on interest, no? So basically, borrowing cost equals to interest. However, in this specific discussion, we will be focusing on interest, no, which can be capitalized. Because by the way, guys, no, interest, no, by general rule, no, are not capitalizable, no. If it is interest, no, dili na siya capitalizable unless that interest, no, is related, no, to a borrowing which is used, no, kanang borrowing gigamit nimo siya to construct an asset. Okay? Of course, there is naay guidance or naay rule nga gihatag si standard, no, naay rule nga gihatag si standard on how to or on when to capitalize interest. Again guys, interest general rule is expense as incurred. That is part of our financing expenses or finance expenses, which is part of OPEX or operating expenses. Now, the exception there will be this topic or the capitalizable borrowing cost, which is related to constructed asset. No? And the construction should take as long period of time. No? So borrowing related to construction, and that construction should take a period of time. No? Di lang siya one-time purchase. Okay. So next one. So next is core principle. This one, no? Borrowing costs that are directly attributable to the acquisition, construction, or production of a qualifying asset, no, form part of the cost of that asset, no? So what are qualifying assets? So later on we will find out. Okay. So other borrowing costs are recognized as expense, no? So borrowing cost usually recognized as expense except for borrowing cost related or directly attributable to the acquisition, construction, or production of a qualifying asset, which can form part of the cost of that certain asset. Okay. Sige, wala pa niya mention on what are qualifying assets. So, I'll share another slide or another presentation to you guys. So this one, I'll also be giving this one to you. A window, share a tab here. This one. Okay. So in this slide or in this PDF, no, we laid out what are the qualifying assets. Now, as again, I've said, Janina, we can only capitalize, or there is a requirement for us to capitalize borrowing cost or interest related to the construction, production, or acquisition or purchase of a qualifying asset. And what is the definition of this qualifying asset? So a qualifying asset, no, it is an asset that takes a substantial period of time. Diba? As what I've said, there is a period of time, no, for it to be finished, no, to get ready for its intended use. So examples include, no, inventories. By the way, guys, actually, now when we touch the topic inventories, now just to clarify with you guys, if the inventory is purchased, and pag-purchase na to guys inventory, kay finished goods na siya, meaning wala na tay himuon for us to sell it again. The interest related to that purchase of inventory is expensed as incurred. This only applies to inventories, no, which takes a substantial period of time to get ready. So usually inventories, kung kita mga ang business nato is to buy or construct and sell house and lot. So di ba kung mao na siya tong business, so the house and lot that we have are inventories. And those house and lot, no, takes a substantial period of time. Di ba? Kaya gina-construct pa man nato siya. So, if we have a borrowing related or used to construct and acquire those inventories, which takes a substantial period of time, the interest expense and other finance costs, no, or borrowing costs related to the inventory can be can be capitalized, no. However, if the purchase or the acquisition of inventory which is already available for sale upon purchase, say for example merchandising company kita, so those interest costs, no, which is related to the purchase of those inventory cannot be capitalized. Ang rule jud nato guys, ayo pwede ni siya ninyo maano, examples lang ni siya. Ang tan-awon jud nato for us to know what is a qualifying asset is that it should take a substantial period of time. So next is manufacturing plants, of course, mga building, power generation facilities. It also includes intangible assets and investment properties. Now, investment properties, by the way, are those land and building, no, which are held for capital appreciation and for rental purposes. No? Later on, we will be discussing this one. Okay, so in financial assets and inventories that are manufactured or otherwise produced over a short period of time, no? Short period of time, guys, are not qualifying assets. No? Assets that are ready for their intended use or sale when acquired are not qualifying assets. So ang rule jud nato, substantial period of time. So short period of time, no. And if wala nay manufacturing and modifying ang ginahitabo, so these are not qualifying assets. Okay, going back. Sige, balik sa diri sa borrowing cost now para di na to magbalik later. So borrowing cost, interest and other costs incurred by a company or an enterprise in connection with the borrowing of the funds. So borrowing cost may include interest expense, no, pinaka-common, finance charges, and any exchange differences arising from foreign currency borrowings to the extent that they are regarded as an adjustment to interest cost. Pero pinaka-common lang dun na to, guys, and mugawa sa mga exams is the interest expense. No? However, do not forget this too, no? Because these might pop up in some theory questions. Accounting treatment, no? The revised PAS 23 has specifically mentioned that interest on loans, no? Kung interest siya on loans applied to qualifying assets, no? Kaning qualifying asset, interest sa qualifying asset should be capitalized. Now, this eliminates any benchmark or alternative treatment. So, That's why I was the word should is not can but should pala. Oo. Bosag ko na dapat dili ka na akong keyword. Sige, anyway. Let's go back to the PowerPoint slide. Okay. Sige. So, mao na jud na eh. Definition of a borrowing costs. So, borrowing costs are interest and other costs, blah, blah, blah. We already read this one just a moment ago. Interest, finance charges, and exchange differences. And here are an example, or here are examples of qualifying assets and the definition of a qualifying asset. Okay. So next page. Okay. So in addition to what I've said, now qualifying assets or those that do not qualify as a qualifying assets. So number one are financial assets and inventories that are manufactured or otherwise produced over a short period of time. So if short period of time ang ilang production sa inventory, no, those are not qualifying assets. So ang rule if there are not qualifying assets, any borrowing costs related to the acquisition, construction, and purchase of those inventories are not capitalizable. Same with financial assets. Letter B, assets that are ready for their intended use. As what I've said, if merchandising ka, nipalit na ka og finished goods daan. So those, any interest cost related to the acquisition of those inventories cannot be capitalized because they are not qualifying assets. Okay. Letter C, assets that are routinely manufactured or otherwise produced in large quantities on a repetitive basis. So usually, one item, sa example, ang example sa letter C is, unsa man, kanang, not sure, but anyway, anything that can be finished, quickly, kanang mga gina-manufacture pero paspas lang sa i-manufacture. Basically, the gist of it is it can be finished on a short period of time. Like kanang example, kanang mga pagkaon, like mga dilatas, di ba? Gina-manufacture mo po na siya pero paspas lang siya. Large quantity po, and repetitive basis. And letter D, please do not forget also, assets measured at fair value cannot have borrowing costs. Anything related to the assets related, any borrowing costs related to assets measured at fair value should be expensed as incurred. So an example guys is ang investment property. Investment property, similar with PPE guys, has two measurement models. So PPE, ang measurement model diba sa PPE, as what I've said last time, is that it has the cost model and it has the revaluation model. So revaluation model is also a fair value model. Similarly, investment properties, the general measurement for investment properties, since they are investments, kay fair value, just to give you ang manggod sa investment property, there is a presumption that fair value can be measured reliably, or it can be measured, ang fair value sa investment property. So therefore, the default measurement of investment property is a fair value model. Okay. However, investment property can also be measured using cost model. Of course, naara na sa accounting policy ni company. However, if mag-cost model ka, there is a requirement for you to be able to disclose in your notes into the financial statements the fair value. Okay, so of course guys, diba? when we go to commencement of capitalization. So guys, of course, the period of the loan in which it bears interest and the period of construction would most likely not coincide with each other. So there is a need for us to know when can we capitalize interest expense, no? Kanus ata makakapitalize interest expense. Dili tanang interest expense guys pwede makapitalize, no? The basic gist ng jud ani guys is that any interest, no? Any interest nagadagan during the construction period, no, from the start of the construction until the end of the construction, those are capitalizable. Okay? However, of course, the standard states, no, that capitalization of borrowing cost, no, as part of the cost of a qualifying asset commences. What do we mean by commences? Starts, no? Mag-start. So example ani guys, kung dali lang mangita ko ano di siya ma-edit. Okay, so di na ko siya ma-edit. Di ko ka sulat-sulat. Anyway, later na lang. I'll just read for a while. So when all of the following conditions are met, the entity incurs expenditures for the asset. So naano tagipang nagsugod ng taog kanang pamalit og mga materials, na natin mga expenditure, nang natag mga personnel, natag mga contractors, blah blah blah. Letter B, the entity incurs borrowing cost. Of course, at the time nagadagan na ang interest. No? Letter C, it undertakes activities that are necessary to prepare the assets for its intended use or sale. So basically, nagsugod na natin mga plano, na natin mga blueprint, nangita na mga tao, blah blah blah. So ang guys is that usually manggod, example lang ha, kung so example January 1, on January 1 we borrowed 2 million or 100 gamay na lang amounts, 100 pesos, no, nagaborrow tag 100 pesos on January 1. Nya nagsugod ta sa A, B, and C or sa A and C mga March 31 pa to nagsugod. So ang interest guys, no, from January 1 to March 31 expense pa na siya. Kay wala pa man ta nagsugod sa atong construction. Ara na ta magsugod og capitalize atong interest, no, from April 1 or start of March 31 until end of construction. Okay, so ana siya ang commencement of capitalization. Or another thing, if nagsugod ta og construction January 1, no, na-realize nato nagsugod ta January 1. Na-realize nato on June 30 na kulangan tag kwarta. So nanghuam ta. So on July 1 nanghuam ta og 1,000 pesos. Nya nahuman tag construct December 31. So ang borrowing cost na mudagan kay July 1 lang until December 31. Ano mudagan nga makapitalize nato, no? Example, ang term sa loan kay 1 year. So kung 1 year mahog siya July 1 and to the next July 1 starting nya mag-expire siya 1 year man July 1 next year. Nya December 31 current year man ako man. So ang interest, ang borrowing cost ng gihapon ng mudagan kay from July 1 until December 31. More na siya itong makapitalize. So katong January 1 next year until June 30 next year, so July 1 next year, expense na to siya. Kay wala na, nahuman naman ang construction. So, but for this one, no, ang focus lang nato sa, later on we will talk about when to stop, no, incurring borrowing cost or capitalizing borrowing cost. But ang focus na to karon, when do we start? So all should exist. Take note guys, all should exist. All should exist. Okay. So suspension. So when do we say, or what do we mean by suspension? No? Suspension of capitalization. So suspension is basically temporary, di ba? Temporary halt, HALT, or temporary stoppage, no? Giundang nato temporarily ang pag-capitalize sa interest, no? This would happen, no? Only during extended periods of suspension. Extended period of suspension of active development of a qualifying asset. So example ana, mag-stop lang ta og capitalization when there is murag or na event na hitabo long periods of rain be, sige rag uwan nya dili ta ka proceed sa tong construction kay di mo uga ang semento. Example lang siya guys, di ko familiar sa mga unsay ginahimo sa construction. Pero ingana no, kung extended ang pag-undang sa construction no, na suspend ang construction, so no, we are allowed to suspend also the capitalization. So in that extended period of suspension, now we are allowed to stop capitalization. Okay. Cessation. What do we mean by cessation? When do we end? No, kanus ata mag-end sa capitalization sa borrowing cost. Okay. Okay, I'll read. An entity shall cease capitalizing borrowing costs when substantially all activities necessary to prepare the qualifying assets for its intended use or sale are complete. Ang ano guys, no, kay so basically humana siya. However, I remember there is mag-ingo magutag substantially all. So ang ano na lang, naan siya ibang mga problems no, that you may encounter when you are answering mga reviewers and quiz be, no, or exams. There are, wala siya ginaingon ni problem specifically. So kung maingon siya nga kanang mga ano na lang, pinturahan na lang, so kanang kung pinturahan na lang, basically that's substantially finished. So kung ana na lang ang activities nga nahitabo, ang nahabilin, so okay na siya. No need to wala na need to capitalize, no? So meaning at that point, since it's basically substantially complete, no, kay minor work na lang, so amo na siya kinamin, no? If there are ang kanang may mga minor work na lang ang ang nahabilin, so those are already, or at that point, substantially complete na siya, and therefore cessation of capitalization, no, or capitalization shall cease. Okay. Sige. Later on now, we will be having examples applying this one. Okay. Sige. Now let's go to computations. Okay. Now we have two kinds of borrowing, guys. Natay duha klase nga borrowing, no? We have specific borrowing. So when we say specific borrowing, it just means that the loan was taken out specifically to construct the asset. So, ang reason nga nung nag-loan ka ana kay sa pag-construct nimo sa certain asset. If specific borrowing siya, definitely that is a direct cost, no, or that is an incremental cost or a loan incremental to your construction. So therefore, if specific borrowing siya, no, all of your interest expense will be, of course, it should be within the construction period, no, na for applying that rule. However, basically, all of your interest expense can be or will be capitalized as a borrowing cost. Okay. However, if you have earned investment income, no, on specific borrowing, so that is deducted. So example ana kay naghulam kag 10 million. Ang construction nimo would go over 2 years. 10 million imong gihuam. So on the first year, naghuam na kag 10 million. Ang expectation nimo sa first year kay ang magasto lang nimo kay 5 million. So na kay nahabiling nga 5 million pa. So example, kung ikaw wise ka nga manager or wise ka nga owner, since 10 million may imo magihuam, nya 5 million imo magamit pa, of course magamit yun imong 10 million. So ang 5 million nga wala pa nimo ginagamit, imo sa gi-invest. Gi-invest sa nimo siya, gipatubo sa nimo. So after 1 year, so nag-incur kag interest expense. So say for example, 10%, so 1 million. So nakay 1 million nga interest expense no on 1 year. Nya katong 5 million nga gi-invest nimo, nagkatubo sad, nagka-earn sad siya og tana to 500,000. So 1 million nga interest expense nimo, minusan nimo sa investment income nimo nga 500,000 sa pagpatubo nimo sa imong wala nagamit nga funds on the specific borrowing. So ang question here, how much would be the capitalizable borrowing cost? The answer would only be 500,000. So basically maora na siya ang specific borrowing. So what is your interest expense? Deduct investment income. Take note of this, guys. So this is I've noticed a lot of students forgetting investment income or how to treat investment income. Ang ano na lang ninyo guys, ang i-imagine na lang ninyo expense versus income. So kung ang isa kay income, ang isa expense, of course, you have to gina-minus mo ang isa sa isa, no? So they don't match each other. No? Dili sila pwede i-add. So ang treatment jud sa expense and income, imo silang gina-minus sa duha. Okay, so that's specific borrowing. That's the easy one, specific borrowing. Now, let's go to the medyo complicated one, which is general borrowing. Okay? So determining borrowing costs eligible for capitalization related to general borrowing. So general borrowing, guys, no, as opposed to specific borrowing, is that general borrowing is not specifically related to the loan. So mura na siya borrowing for your operations plus all of your investment and all of your investment activities. Okay? So therefore, if general borrowing siya, there is a need for you to allocate. No? Gina-allocate nimo siya. Gina-allocate nimo siya into borrowing cost which is capitalizable and borrowing cost which is not capitalizable. Okay. So how do we do it? Okay. So mo ni siya. So di ba you have total interest expense on general borrowing. No? Wait lang. For a while, I'm nakoy libro dere. Just to give you a better understanding or a better view no on this formula for a while. Nakoy Valix dere nga libro. Charan, chan, chan, chan. Mm-hmm. Asset finance, okay. All right, sige. So basically here, no? So I want you guys to follow with me closely. Sorry, nakamute ko. Arin lang ko na-mute, no? Wait lang. Sige. Basta ako na lang nakabalik. Ganina ba ako nakamute? Or bago lang? Lamot ko sa nag-mute. Sige, fine. Basta I'll read it again, no? An entity had the following borrowings on January 1 of the current year. So the borrowings were made for general purposes and the proceeds were partly used to finance the construction of a new building. Okay. Sige. Principal is 3 million, 1.5 and 3.5. So in this case, guys, we have three natitulo ka general borrowing. Ang first nato ay 10% bank loan, second is 12% short-term note, third is 8% long-term note. So principal 3 million, 1.5, 3.5, and our borrowing cost is 300, 180, and 280. And what I've said ganina, please verify how much the amount of the borrowing cost or the amount of the interest cost, no, para makita ninyo asagi ko ang mga amounts. Please recompute 300, please recompute 180, and please recompute 280. Okay, lubat. All right, I think you already computed it. It's simply 3 million times 10%, 1.5 times 12, 3.5 times 8. So you have a total borrowing cost of 760. Now, under general borrowing, guys, no, once we computed the two, the 8 million and 760, what you do here is you divide 760 with 8 million. And you would be arriving sa imuhang interest or capitalization rate or rate ni i-capitalize nimo. Or your weighted average interest rate. So 760 divided by 8 million equals 9.5. This 9.5 is your weighted average interest rate. And this will be applied all throughout your this will be applied for your general borrowing and this will be applied for your capitalization. Okay, so okay na to sa 9.5. Ari pa lang ta. Diri pa lang ta. Now, unsa ni siya? I'll read. Now, the construction of the building was started on January 1 and was completed on December 31 of the current year. Expenditures on the building were, now guys, on January 1, out of the 8 million loan, nagamit og 400,000. Ang March 31, nagigamitan na to 1 million. Ang June 30, gamitan na to 1.2. September 30, 1 million. December, 400,000. So ang meaning ani guys, no, the expenses related to the construction of this building, which cost 4 million, is not incurred evenly. Wala siya incur evenly. Now, the dilemma there is that how do we apply the weighted average interest rate given the fact that the cost that we incurred is not equal and did not occur no one time. So katag-katag or natawag ana kanang dili wala na to gi-incur ang cost na to kaisa. Now what we do here, no, sa atong expenses na 4 million total and buwag-buwag siya, na siya March, na June, na January, na September, na December, we have to get also the weighted average expenditures, no? Okay. Again, we have to get the weighted average expenditure. So how do we do that? Are. Sige. Now, what I want you guys to do here is count with me, no? So, or analyze, no? Other than that, analyze the table. Analyze the table. Okay. So, on January 1, nag-incur taog 400,000 nga expense. Kano saan na human? Okay, sige. Ang detail di ay nato guys nga tan-awon before we go about the table. No? Ang tanawon ninyo nga information, number 1 nga tanawon ninyo information sa kaninga expenditures, kano sa ata nag-start og gasto. So nagsugod ta og ano sa ata nagsugod og construct. Nagsugod ta January 1, no? Convenient kaayo sa yun ra. Nya na complete ta og construct December 31. So meaning 12 months or 1 year atong construction. So, magasugod ta og incur interest, di ba? Commencement, January 1. Cessation na to, kay na-complete na siya, December 31. So, January 1 to December 31 is our capitalization period. Okay, let's go back to the table here. Now, on January 1, we incurred 400,000. Now, this 400,000, guys, we have to identify how many months outstanding. So, kano sa siya, pila siya ka months nga na-incur before ta na-complete sa atong construction. Of course, since January 1 ta, nag-incur sa 400,000, na-complete ta December 31. So, that is 12 months outstanding. So, January 1, February, March, April, May, June 6, July, August, September, October, November, December, 12. No, 12 months. So, 400,000 times 12. We get 4.8 million. Okay. Now, next, March. So, we incurred 1 million on March 31. So again, we have to get how many months it is outstanding. So March 31, since March 31 man siya guys, we will be starting our count no sa April. So April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. That is 9 months. So 1 million times 9, 9 million. Next, June 30, 1.2 million. So July, August, September, October, November, December. That is 6 months. Another one, September 30. So our count off would start from October, November, December. That's 3 months, 3 million. And lastly, December 31. Of course, December 31 is also the last day of the construction. So wala na yung months. No? 0 months outstanding because basically it's the expense at the last day of construction. So we add everything, 4.8, 9, 7.2 plus 3 million. We will be arriving at 24 million. And this 24 million will be divided by the 12 months. What is 12 months? That is the number of periods and the number of period of construction. Duha ko giano ha. The number of months and the number of months constructed, because actually no, there are some examples which does not give out the full 12 months, no? Sometimes 8 months lang. So tanaw na to guys, basically if shorter than 12 months na ang construction, so we use that construction period. But if it is longer than 12 months, we use 12 months first. Okay? So on the first year. Or in the second year, depende. Example kung 18 months, so on the first year, mag 12 months lang ka, mag over 12. The next year, kay mag over 6 na lang ka. Anyway, we'll have an example for that later. So another approach for this one, guys, actually mo na siya akong approach kung ako sa una, patong undergrad pa ko. But I find this one better karon. Mas dali ra siya kay isa ra ko mag-divide og 12. Dili kay kadaghan ka mag-divide og 12. So mas longer siya nga step. But anyway, you will be arriving at the same amount of 2 million. Okay. So naana tayo duha nga na-compute guys, di ba? So first we computed the average interest cost. Ano pila gani itong average interest cost na to? That's 9.5. That is 760 over 8 million. That's our first thing na kailangan jud i-compute. Again guys, please take note. First thing that we have to compute for general borrowing is the average interest rate. Now once we computed the average interest rate, we have to compute the average expenditures. And the average expenditures is 2 million. Okay. Now this average expenditure of 2 million will be applied to the average interest. So 2 million times 9.5 equals 190. And 190 shall be our capitalizable borrowing cost. Again, 190 is our capitalizable borrowing cost, guys. However, of course, what natay step 3. So step 1, interest. Step 2, average expense. Step 3, computation of the borrowing cost. Step 4, ang mo siyang pinaka-importante, mo siya ang perminting makalimtan sa mga estudyante, is that we have to compare. We have to compare the actual interest. So compare na to si 760 o si 190. In case nga mas dako ang ato ang na-compute nga capitalizable borrowing cost sa ato ang actual interest or actual borrowing cost, ang limit nato would be the actual. So kung example. Ang example nato dire, what if 900,000 siya dili 190? So 900,000 atong interest dire instead of 190, i-compare nato siya sa 760, mas dako ato ang capitalizable. However, dili siya pwede mahimo. It should not exceed the 760. So in case that happens, ang limit nato or ang amount nga i-capitalize nato nga borrowing cost would only be 760, which is the limit and the actual. Okay. So how did we know? Okay. As the standard mentioned, no, please take note, the capitalizable borrowing cost shall not exceed the actual borrowing cost. Please ko guys, importante kayo ni. Again, i-reiterate na ko guys natin 4 nga steps. Step 1, computation of the weighted average interest or the average interest. Step 2, computation of the weighted average expenditures. Step 3, computation of the borrowing cost. Now we got 190. Step 4, compare. Compare the borrowing cost computed versus the actual. Because in the case that the computed borrowing cost is greater than the actual, we will only be using the actual as that is the limit. And the standard states that capitalizable borrowing cost shall not exceed the actual borrowing cost. Okay. So hopefully that will medyo mag-shed sa og light ana. So anyway, please na lang i-remind na lang ko sige mag-post ko karon ang i-prioritize na ko later is the cash and cash equivalents ng mga quizzers, and of course I will be posting quizzers also for borrowing cost. Anyway guys, we will still be discussing borrowing cost na if it's kind of a short topic, but if mahuman nato siya karon, I'll have additional examples plus the cash examples as I promised for next meeting, which is Friday. All right. So to continue, so the capitalizable borrowing cost is 190 because it is less than the actual borrowing cost. So ang 760 nato guys, gitunga siya. No, ang 760 nato nga interest nga actual, gitunga siya 190 kay capitalizable, 570 is expensed. Okay? 760 minus 190, 570. So nga na to, 190 capitalized, 570 expense. Okay. So going back. Okay. Again, weighted average interest expense. The next is average expenditure. Okay. So the amount computed in formula above shall be compared with the actual borrowing cost incurred during the period, and the amount to be capitalized is the lower amount. So whichever is lower, kana na lang pinakasayo, no? Whichever is lower between the actual and the computed, that will be the capitalizable amount. Okay. Sige. Next one guys is, what if daw ang asset nga gi-construct nato or ang qualifying asset nga gi-construct nato kay gi-finance nato siya through both specific and general borrowing. So of course guys, when that happens, no, natay another approach. So of course, specific borrowing, 100% of the interest less investment income. No, same lang yapon siya. Interest expense less investment income will be our borrowing cost from specific borrowing. So no issue there. However, natay general borrowing. Now remember guys, natay average expense, average interest rate, correct? Or average capitalization rate. That's our step 1. Our step 2 is average expenditures. So pag compute na to guys sa average expenditure, no, if specific and general ta, ang average expenditure nato, no, tangtangan sa nato og amount, no? Kung pila ato ang specific borrowing, i-minus nato sa average expenditures, we will be arriving to our expenditures financed by general borrowing, then multiplied by the capitalization rate computed in step 1. And that will be our borrowing cost from general borrowing. And of course, same lang gihapon, no? The amount computed in the formula is compared with the actual borrowing cost incurred during the period. And it should be the lower amount. So another example, so I'll be sharing. So asset financed by both specific and general borrowing. So at the beginning of the current year, an entity borrowed 1.5 million at an interest of 10% specifically for the construction of a new building. The actual borrowing cost on this loan is 150. So 1.5 billion times 10%, we will be arriving at 150,000. So basically, ana ra siya. Yeah, other than the specific borrowing, guys, of 1.5, we also had a general borrowing which has an 8% interest, no, and a principal amount of 7 million. Okay. So since isa lang man siya, guys, ang general borrowing nato, automatically our average interest rates kaning-ganina would automatically be 8%. Kaya siya raman isa. Karon ganina kay tulo man siya, so nag-average pa ta. Dire kay wala naman isa lang man, so di na ta kailangan mag-average. So, average being 8. 8 raman gyapon na. The construction of the building started on January 1, so nag-January 1 gyapon ta, and December 31. So again, another thing that you should note, when did we start constructing and when did we end constructing, because that will be the basis for the capitalization. Now, again, this one is financed by both specific and general. Okay. So here are the expenditures. January 1, so outstanding siya for 12 months, no? January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, that's 12. April 1, that's outstanding for 9 months. April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, May. May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Outstanding for 8 months. September, October, November, December is outstanding for 4 months. December, outstanding for 0 months. Okay. So step 2, no, we compute for the average expenditures. So average expenditures, again, as what I've said, ano mo na siya ang outstanding months? So 500 times 12 over 12, 500,000. 1 million times 9 over 12. So gigamit niya ang another approach now, but we may follow what we did on the first table. Basically, we just do 500 times 12, 1 million times 9, 1.5 million times 8, 1.5 billion times 4, 500 times 0. Niya i-add na to tulo ang upat. Niya i-divide na to sa 12. And we will still be arriving at our average expenditure of 2.75. Now, of course, I'm going to be giving you time to recompute this one. So I'll give you until 6:50 to recompute this average expenditure. Ako na lang show ang ano pod, para kung naumana mo, you can proceed with this one. Okay. So please compute 2,750, guys, using both approach if you can. Erase ng inyong hands aron ma-notify ko. So don't just listen in, guys. Please also grab your calculators and recompute, no, para better inyong understanding. Sige. All right. So I'll continue. So again, so we have arrived to our average expenditure of 2,750. Okay. So again, this one is applicable for both specific borrowing with general borrowing and general borrowing. So again, just to remind you guys, we have a specific borrowing here of 1.5 and we have a general borrowing of 7 million. When we arrive at our 2,750 here, we have to take out first, no? So basically this 2,750 mo na siya atong expenditures daw or weighted average expenditures na to related to the loans. Now this 2,750, what we have to do first, since it is financed both by specific and general, aning total nga expenditure, tangtangon sa nato ang specific borrowing in full amount. So, di ba natin 1.5 there is a specific, tangtangon sa nato, we will get the 1 to 50. And this 1 to 50, guys, is what we call the average expenditure assigned or specific related to general borrowing. So 1 to 50 average expenditures related to general borrowing. Now 1 to 50, this will be multiplied to the average expenditure. This time it's just the interest expense of 8%. So 1 to 50 times 8%, we will be arriving to 100,000 and the specific borrowing 150,000. 150,000 in full because wala tay interest income related to this minus 1. So ang total na to ang capitalizable borrowing cost is 250. And of course, even though obviously mas naga-exceed ang actual interest, but we can also compare that the 100,000 na general borrowing sa interest expense for the 7 million. How much how much is the interest expense or actual interest for this loan? Ilang ang actual ani guys? How much? 560,000. So of course, whichever is lower between the two, ang lower na to is the 100,000. So the capitalizable borrowing here is 100. So therefore, total capitalizable borrowing cost is 250. Sige. Later on, when we proceed to our next topic, land and building, we will ma-apply na nato ni siya ang borrowing cost. So more or less guys, inig-arrive na to guys sa land and building machinery, everything that we have learned from day 1 in Phil 124, ma-apply na nato siya. So basically the acquisition of property, plant, and equipment is one long topic and would probably take us until next week would be land and building. The week after would be machinery and capitalizable and expenditure. Would take us a total of 1 month. A total of 1 month. Just for us to know the acquisition portion of PPE. And after the acquisition, we have the subsequent measurement like depreciation, depletion, etc. Impairment, revaluation. Okay, so medyo mataas ang PPE na topic. Anyway, it's di kaya siya complex actually. Taas lang siya. Okay. Sige, going back to the next to the slides. Okay. So hopefully the okay na ang book. Okay, financial statement presentation. Qualifying assets are not segregated from other assets in the financial statements. They are presented as regular assets under their normal classification as provided under other standards. So usually guys, if the PPE, or usually if PPE siya, and it's still under construction, ang tawag ana niya guys is what we call a construction in progress. CIP. So kung building siya, wala pa siya nahuman, ang tawag ana niya kay construction in progress. It is better for us to classify it as such, as construction in progress, in order for us to know that those assets are not yet depreciable. Kay mag-depreciate lang man ta guys after construction or ready for use na siya. Actually, the term used in the standard is available for use. When the asset is available for use, we can now start depreciating it. No? Since it is still a construction in progress, it is not yet available for use and therefore not subject to depreciation. So that is another thing or another important thing for us to not classify a constructed asset, no, or an asset which is not yet finished as part of PPE yet. However, as part of the main account or the classification of building, sorry. Pero, of course, himuon na to ana, they are still under the term quote-unquote PPE. So PPE gihapon siya, pero dili siya building. Na siya sa construction in progress. Para lang ma-segregate na to. So, sige, let me give you an example, ha? Okay. Okay. Just di pa man ta, dali lang ha. For a while. Hindi ko ka-search. Dali lang ha. So actually gapangita ko og financial statement example of a qualifying asset. Kanina lang be. Hindi man siya note, hindi man siya ano eh. Hindi siya FS jud. Okay, okay. I found one. Yan lang ha. Hinay sa internet sa kong laptop. Sige. Akane. So, maran na akong pasabot guys. Sorry guys, kay di pa na ko siya ma-edit. So, na pa siya yung mga and then mga tawag ano yung mga formatting guide. Nakaano pa siya. So, anyway, mo na siya oh. So, under gyapon sila sa PPE nga classification. So that's what I've mentioned as what is mentioned in the slide. So under gyapon sa PPE na classification. Pero important siya nga ano nato siya, i-segregate nato siya diri sa classification gyapon as a construction in progress if wala pa siya nahuman. And of course, if mahuman na siya, ibutang na siya diri. Transmission, commuter meters, blah blah, building improvements, blah blah blah. Pero ano lang sa siya dire because it is important for us to highlight that these items are not yet finished and are not yet subject to depreciation. Take note ano dire. Sila lang ang walay depreciation and amortization dire oh. Sila lang walay depreciation. Of course land and land wala man gina-depreciate pud ang land. So ano siya? Stop to mag-share. So going back to the topic. So again, qualifying assets are not segregated from other assets. They are presented as regular assets. So in the case of qualifying assets na PPE, they are still under PPE, no? Under their normal classification as provided under other standards. Okay, so done na ang slides. Now let's go to application. So sample problems for a while. Na example? Yes, isa lang kabuok. Pila? Duha? Sige, let's go. Sige. Going to be copy pasting this one, no? On an Excel aron walay Nag-problema akong laptop karon, di ko ka search ako snipping tool. For a while guys ha. Snipping tool, where are you? Okay, let's aman. All right, so problem 1. Sige. So let us discuss the problem. All right. So during 2019, Peaches Industries Incorporated constructed a new manufacturing facility at a cost of 25 billion. The expenditures for this building, which was finished late in 2019, were incurred at different points during the year with a weighted average amount of 15. So in this case, guys, katong di ba example na to ganina, naanay mga expenditures sige panglatag. But in this case, guys, the weighted average expenditures katong step 2 that I've mentioned is already given by the problem. So ang weighted average daw kay 15 million. The company had the following loans outstanding at December 31, 2019. So first, 10% note to finance construction of the manufacturing facility dated January 1, 2019, amounting to 10 million. Unpaid as of December 31, 2019, the investments were made on the proceeds from this loan and income of 200,000 was realized in 2019. So what is this one, guys? Is this specific borrowing or general borrowing? Specific general, ang bullet 1, specific, correct, no? Specific, of course, kay, obviously, giingon, gihuam siya to finance the construction of the manufacturing facility. Specific borrowing. Okay, so, by the way, guys, another thing that we have to mind is kano sa ta nag-start and kano sa ta nag-end. Kano sa ta nag-start, wala siya nag-ingon kano sa nag-start, pero nag-end siya late in 2019. So assumption ani I think is 1 year or for the whole year ta nag-construct. So 1 year atong construction period. So again, we have our weighted average expenditure na 25 million at na 15 million, sorry, my bad. We deduct the specific borrowing na 10. Unsay result ani? This is general borrowing. Yeah? Ay, di ba kay? Di ba? Because that other two here, the 12%, 30 million loan, the 8%, 10 million loan, wala may dimension unsa ang use nila. So these two, the 12 million 20-year 30 million loan, the 8% 5-year 10 million loan, these are what we call general borrowing. So since duhaman sila guys, what do we need to do? Since duhaman sila, unsa ang himuon nato first? We get the what? We get what? Unsa tong i-compute first? No, related to what I've said. Duhaman ang general borrowing. Correct. Since duha ang general borrowing guys, no, since duha ang general borrowing, kuhaunon sa nato ang average interest. So how to get the average interest? So what we do, we get the principal na 30 million and 10 million, no, kani sa 8%, sa 12% loan, ang kani kay sa 8% na loan, no, 30, 12, and 8. And how much is our interest or our borrowing cost? That is 30 million multiplied by 12%, 3.6 and 800. So of course, once we get that, we add the two. Add the two, and we get the average interest rate. So the average interest rate is 11%. Okay, so since 11% general borrowing, we multiply by the average interest rate of 11%, 5 million multiplied by 11%, we will be arriving at the capitalizable general borrowing. And of course, guys, another thing that we do, whichever borrow. What we do, we compare. Of course, layo na kayo, 4.4 ang actual, 5 lang ang capitalizable. So of course, whichever is lower, this is one is lower. But another one, guys, we have to take note is that napatay specific borrowing. So let's compute for the specific borrowing. So interest expense on specific borrowing So interest expense on specific borrowing, that's 10 million multiplied by 10%, we get 1 million. Of course, less investment income of 200,000. Arrive ka sa 800,000. So this one is our specific borrowing. So we total sa specific borrowing, and general borrowing, 550. Total ang both, we will be arriving at capitalizable or total capitalizable interest of how much? 1,350, letter C. Okay, so what I want you guys to do, I'll give you 5 minutes to recompute this one and get 1,350. Or, sige, until 7:22. Sige. Only 2 problems lang sa guys, so we have enough time. So please recompute. And once you're done, please raise your hand or please say done in the chat box. Okay, so I guess I can extend until 7:25, no? Sige, 7:25 na lang. Please recompute guys, everyone, ha? Palihog ko guys. Thanks. I'll speak again 7:25. Ay, sorry. Sir, ask lang po, nga nung 10 million na specific borrowing ang gimay na sa weighted average expenditure. 10 million because that is the amount of the specific borrowing. Tanawa ang first bullet point kanio. This one is the specific borrowing. This one is note to finance construction. So note siya, meaning borrowing siya, specifically made to finance the construction of the building. So therefore, this 10 million is the specific borrowing. So when we get the weighted average nga 15, tanga na to specific nga 10, we will be arriving at the general borrowing of 5. Hope that clarifies. Asa ko ang average interest rate. So you get the interest expense or the interest for bullet 2 and bullet 3. Kani si 12 og si 8, 36 og 8. So 4.4 million divided by 40 million, you'll get 11% kana. Let me check first. Ano pa? Okay, kana. So, tuwara question. Anyway, hope this hope answers your questions. Okay, so it's already 7:26. So let's go to the last problem. Kumano na natin na guys ha. So this one. Sige. In this case, since ending naman siya, I'll just post this one immediately for you to use. Hopefully di ko ako na i-post karon. Sige. Number 2, Lina Company had the following loans outstanding during the years 2018 and 2019. Now in this case guys, 2 years na po siya. ang mga examples nato previously kay 1 year lang, karon 2 years na. Natay specific borrowing and natay general borrowing. So we began constructing the building on January 1, 2018 and it was completed on December 31, 2019. Take note, ato ang expenditures guys, natay 2018 January, natay July 2018, natay November 2018, and take note, natay July 20.
Katong baib, katong taga-upto nga natatag na to. Ay nagad sila. Ya, nangutan na og kanang committee ba
Ako kay mute ha. Nga naman na. Sige. Taga-upto daw or something. Hindi na, uy. Manong tanan na itong klase. So, mga siyang problema sa online, no? Kay di mo pay attention. Muna ganahan mo face-to-face, kaya ron ano, pahala ano mo diha. Sige. So, first off, we have, since isa lang man natong general loan, so we don't have to compute for the average interest rate. So, let's just compute for the average expenditures. Average expenditures. Okay. So let's start first with 2018. 2018 sakta. Of course, we have the periodicity concept, guys. So we do the average expenditures by year. So we have January 1, 2018. Amounting to 2 million. We have July 1, 2018, and we have November 1, 2018 for 243. Okay. So of course, this one is outstanding for 12 months. July, August, September, October, November, December, this one is outstanding for 6 months. And November, December, outstanding for 2 months. So what we do here, when we get the outstanding months, we multiply it by the amount. Multiply lang. We get the total of the expenditures and we divide by 12. We get our weighted average expenditure. When we get our weighted average expenditure, no, since it is financed both by specific borrowing and general borrowing, ako siya tangtangon, less specific borrowing. Diba guys ha? So, sige, hinahinayon lang na ako aron maka-follow. So again, dili na ta mag-compute for the average interest rate because isa lang man atong general borrowing. Nya nanatay in this case kailangan ta napanisulod. Karon lang nagsulod si si isa. In this case, January 1, 2018, July 1, 2018, November 1, 2018. So, kailangan nato i-compute ang average or weighted average expenditures. So, first, we have to get the 2018 one, no? Because, of course, we do the periodicity concept. So, kung periodicity concept, i-separate nato ang years. So, we arrive at the weighted average expenditure of 4,500,000, and what we do first is take out the specific borrowing of 2 million. 20 million noon. 2 million. Then after that, the difference between the weighted average expenditure and the specific borrowing, this one is for general borrowing. Now, when we arrive to this one, we just multiply this one to the interest rate of 12%. And we will be arriving at 300,000. This one is for capitalizable general borrowing. Now let's compute for the specific borrowing. So specific borrowing, $2 million, di ba ang amount? We just multiply this one with the interest rate of the specific borrowing of 10%. So we will be arriving at 200,000. So we just add general borrowing of 300,000, and we will be arriving at the capitalizable interest for total capita in 2018. $500,000. Now, to answer, wala pa, no? Kay 2019 man ang pangutana. However, we can answer, if the question is how much is the total cost in 2018, our answer would be total expenditures on construction nga add the capitalizable interest nga 500. So this is capitalized expenses in 2018. 9.5. So 2018 pa ta guys ha. 2018. Okay, so medyo ano na siya taas. So let's go to 2019. For 2019 guys, so we don't really have to get this one. However, natay himuon. So napatay 1/1/2019, no? And then this 1/1/2019 would be, ang expenditure nato would be the beginning balance of 9.5. Now, ang next na ito nga na-expend kay July 1, 2019. Question kano sa mata na human? December 31, 2019. So July, August, September, October, November, December, that's 6 months outstanding. 7/1/2019, ang isa kay 12-month outstanding, ang isa kay 6-month amounting to 1 million. So 6 months over 6. So similar lang ang himo nato dire. Multiply lang siya sa number of months outstanding, number of months outstanding. After that, you total the two and you divide it by 12. And you will be arriving at the 10 million weighted average expenditures. So after that, same process, you deduct the specific borrowing of 2 million. 10 million minus 2 million, we get the general borrowing of 8 million. And after that, when we get the general borrowing of 8 million, we multiply it by 12%. So we get 960. And this one is capitalizable general borrowing. But first, what we have to check is makaya ba? Now, 15 million or ansa ba ang ang lower? So 15 million general borrowing multiplied by the 12% interest rate. Ang actual nato nga interest on the general borrowing is 1.8. Layo ra kaayo. Since layo ra kaayo, gamito nato ang 960. So repeat process for specific borrowing since wala may change sa specific borrowing. So we would still have specific borrowing of 200,000. Kana 200,000. Add general borrowing. General borrowing nato is 960,000. So specific borrowing plus general borrowing of 960, we will be arriving at total capitalizable interest in 2019 amounting to 1.160. Okay. Now the question is, what is the total cost of the building on December 31, 2019? Okay, so let's go. So total construction cost in 2018 amounting to 9.5 million. We just add the construction cost in 2019 amounting to 1 million. And another thing, we have to add the capitalized interest in 2019 of 1,160. Then we will be arriving at total cost of the building. Total cost sa itong building kay 11,660. Of course guys, simple lang ka na ang expenditures meaning ano mo siyang construction cost nato. Anong construction cost na 10 million, automatically this 10 million will be capitalized. So kailangan na lang nato nga himuon, we have to determine how much will be the borrowing cost. So ang borrowing cost nato on year 1 is 500,000. So 10 million plus 500,000, so natay 10 million 5. Nya ang borrowing cost nato sa year 2 or 2019 kay 1,160,000. So 10 million plus 1,160, that is 11,660,000. So that is the total cost of the building or total construction cost. Okay, so I'll be saving this one and I will be uploading sa paparan na ni borrowing cost problem. Okay, so alright, so overtime na to no? So anyway, for now guys, for a while, ako sa i-post before ko mag-end sa klase. I-post na ko ang slide ug ang Excel nagian sira nato before ko mag-end. Borrowing cost. Ang pangalan guys sa ano guys ha, Ang pangalan, wait lang. Ako na lang i-change. Karon. Okay, posted. So with that, guys, thank you so much for listening. Sir, may I ask, same lang capitalization rate and interest rate when computing general borrowing, depende. Interest rate, kung mag-ingon kag interest rate, same lang. Ang terms, basically same. Yeah, good evening, sir. Wala pa ka nag-post of G4 pa sa government grants. Sige, I'll post tomorrow morning. Okay, sige. So capitalization rate, interest rate, para na siya. Ano na siya kanang difference in terms. Pero basically those mean the same. Okay, posted to both classrooms. Any more question, guys? So next meeting, guys, this Friday, we're going to be touching up again on borrowing costs, no, para ma-conclude lang nato. So pero ang content sa atong discussion next week regarding borrowing cost will just be Q&A. Q&A for a while. Okay. So question and answer, theory and problems aron ma-apply na to atong na-discuss karon. Nya after borrowing cost nga Q&A kay mag-touch up ko balik pud sa cash and cash equivalents for proof of cash and bank reconciliation for both sections. If na by time, I'm going to be starting with land and building. So that mahumana na to ang PPE aron maka-quiz na ta next week. So again, reminders for ACC 106, guys. Next week will be our quiz 1. Thursday, this will be face-to-face. Reminder nga, face-to-face exams will be through Scantron. Scantron, shade na siya, guys. So I want you guys to bring pencil, Mongol 2, basic calculators. Mora na siya. Yung dadon. Unsa pa? Phil 1 to 4, wala lang sa type quiz, no? To be determined pa itong quiz. I want our first quiz to be after land and building topic, aron mas daghan-daghan ta. The total items for the quiz in ACC 106, guys, kay 50 items, 25 problems, 25 theories. And by the way, guys, just to give you an idea pod, no, this will be the exam week. No, exam week na ta next week actually dapat, pero I will be moving it the week after next week. So our P1, please put it in your calendars. This July 20, again, July 20, quiz 1. July 27, PE1 for ACC 106. Okay, for Phil 1 to 4, our exams and our quiz shall be determined pa or to be determined pa. Nga naman siya. Nabuang lagi ni. Sige, nadoble na ako post. Okay, guys. I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Have a nice day. Bye-bye. Have a nice day. Have a nice evening. Rest well. Bye-bye.
Bye, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Bye,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Bye, sir.